Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something that's very, very cool, and that is blockchain. But not just blockchain technology on its own. We're going to be talking about the women who are really like leading the charge in a lot of ways in the blockchain space.
It's an exciting area, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got this incredible technology, but then you've got all of these like brilliant minds finding all these new applications for it. And these women are really on the cutting edge of things like financial inclusion and making supply chains more transparent, things that have a real impact on everybody.
Totally. It goes way beyond the technology itself. And we're really lucky today because we found this awesome LinkedIn article, Blockchain, Celebrating Our Sisters, and it profiles 5 women who are doing some seriously groundbreaking stuff with blockchain. I mean, we're talking about leading research, leading major companies, even building their own businesses from scratch.
It just goes to show that when you have more voices, more perspectives at the table, especially in a field that changes as fast as blockchain, that's when you get really creative and innovative solutions.
Okay, so let's jump right in. First up, we've got Mariana Gomez de la Vida. Now, Mariana is leading the way on distributed ledger technology, DLT, over at ING. Now, for our listeners who might not be familiar, think of DLT as the tech behind blockchain, like the engine that makes it all work.
Yeah. And when we say leading the way, I mean, she and her team have already launched over 44 proofs of concept, which are basically like real-world trials of how blockchain could work. And get this, 8 of them are already live.
Wait, 8 live projects? That's amazing. So she's not just thinking about it, she's actually out there making it happen.
Exactly. And one of the things that's really interesting about Mariana's approach is that she's really focused on finding the use cases for DLT that will have the biggest impact, like in trade finance, for example. So think about how goods are shipped around the world, right? It's a very complex process. There's a ton of paperwork, lots of middlemen. It can take forever. So Mariana wants to use blockchain to streamline all of that, right? Make it faster, cheaper, and way more secure for everyone involved.
Which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because blockchain is all about secure and transparent transactions. But it gets even better. So the article mentions something called zero-knowledge range proof, which ING is working on, and I'll admit that sounds a little intimidating at first.
It sounds way more complicated than it is. It's a really cool solution to a major concern that people have about blockchain, and that's data privacy. Imagine this. You're buying something online, and you need to prove that you have enough money in your account to cover the purchase, but you don't want to show the seller your entire bank statement, right? Zero-knowledge range proof lets you do exactly that. You can prove you have the funds without revealing the actual amount.
Wow, that is really cool. You're not giving away more information than you absolutely need to, which is something a lot of people worry about when it comes to blockchain.
Absolutely. This kind of technology really builds trust, and that is key for getting more people to use it. And looking ahead, Mariana sees some major trends shaping the future of blockchain, things like interoperability, which is basically different blockchain networks being able to work together seamlessly, which is huge. And then there's tokenization, self-sovereign identity, and of course, privacy. It's about making the whole system more connected and more efficient.
Yeah, it's like laying the groundwork for a whole new way of doing business online. But, for every Mariana out there who's kind of focused on the tech side, there's someone like Tavonia Evans who's using blockchain to uplift communities that have been excluded from traditional finance.
Yeah, her story's incredible. I mean, this is a woman who went from designing websites for celebrities to creating her own cryptocurrency. Talk about a career pivot.
That's amazing. And what I love about Tavomia's story is that she's so mission-driven, She created Guap coins specifically to promote financial inclusion, especially for marginalized communities.
Absolutely. And yeah, the thing is, the traditional financial system, it doesn't work for everybody, right? There are a lot of people who face huge barriers, like high fees, minimum balances, maybe they don't even have a bank in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
But with a cryptocurrency like Guap coin, all you need is like a smartphone and an internet connection.
It's about giving people control over their own finances, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Exactly. And this idea of decentralization is so central to the whole idea behind blockchain, right? Putting power back into the hands of the people.
And this kind of ties into what we're seeing with Modupe Ativie over in Africa, right?
Oh, absolutely. Talk about a powerhouse. She's a huge advocate for women in blockchain, especially through her work with the Global Blockchain Women Alliance. But her perspective as a blockchain journalist is so valuable, especially her analysis of what's going on with the Nigerian central bank.
Right, because they initially banned cryptocurrencies, but then didn't they do a complete 180 a few months later?
Right. 9 months later, to be exact, yeah. So they ban crypto, and then they turn around and launch their own digital currency. They call it a CBDC, central bank digital currency.
That is wild. I mean, it just goes to show how quickly things can change in the blockchain space, right? Even governments are trying to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, and Modupe's work really highlights how important it is to understand this whole other side of blockchain, the regulations. Because it's not just about the technology, it's tied into politics and economics and social dynamics. It's really fascinating. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about another trailblazer, Dawn Jutla.
Oh yeah, Dawn's work is amazing. I was blown away by her research, particularly on blockchain and supply chains. I mean, we're talking about transforming how things like food and medicine are tracked and verified.
And this is someone who's got her hands in everything. She's a researcher, she's an entrepreneur, she's even a leader in academia. And she founded her own company, Peer Ledger Inc., focused on building more responsible supply chains.
Wow, talk about a rock star. And on top of all that, she's incredibly passionate about using technology to make a difference in the world, like empowering marginalized communities and closing the wealth gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That commitment to social impact is something you see again and again with these women in blockchain, which is really inspiring to see. But before we move on, can we circle back to Dawn's work with supply chains for a second? Because I think for people who aren't familiar with the ins and outs, it can seem a little abstract.
You're right, because when I think about supply chains, I think about like shipping containers and warehouses and stuff like that. I don't immediately think blockchain.
Right, it's not the most obvious connection. But think about it this way. Every time you buy something, anything, let's say you buy coffee beans.
Yeah.
Those beans went on a whole journey to get to your coffee cup.
Farm to table, or I guess farm to cup in this case.
There you go. Now imagine if you could track every single step of that journey, from the moment those beans were harvested to when they were roasted, packaged, shipped, and then they ended up, at your local store or wherever you bought them.
Wait, are you saying that with blockchain I could, like, track my coffee beans back to the farm they came from?
Yep, that's the idea.
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning. Think about pharmaceuticals, right? Counterfeit drugs are a huge problem globally. But with blockchain, you can verify the authenticity of your medication to make absolutely sure that it's safe and it came from a legitimate source.
Oh, wow. So it's about bringing transparency and accountability to these industries, which they desperately need in a lot of cases.
Right. And efficiency, too. Streamlining these processes can reduce waste, cut down on delays, save businesses money. It's a win-win for everybody.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like blockchain is that missing piece that can create a new level of like trust and efficiency.
Exactly. And this actually ties back into something that Mariana mentioned earlier about interoperability. So right now, you've got all these different blockchain networks, and they're all kind of operating like in their own silos, right? But imagine if they could all talk to each other seamlessly. That would be huge. That's kind of like the holy grail of where blockchain development is headed to revolutionize how we do business globally.
I get it. It's like all these different countries trying to trade with each other, but they're all using different currencies and they all speak different languages.
Yeah.
Imagine what would be possible if we could just like get everyone on the same page.
Exactly. And that's why this work is so important. We're talking about building a more equitable, a fairer global economy.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I want to circle back to Tavonia Evans and Guapcoin, because what she's doing for financial inclusion is revolutionary.
Totally. I remember you were talking about how, for some people, traditional finance just doesn't work. Like, even just the simple act of opening a bank account can be almost impossible, and that's where something like Guapcoin can really make a difference.
Because it removes those barriers to entry, right?
Yeah.
You don't need credit history. You don't need proof of income. You just need, like I said before, a smartphone. It's incredibly empowering, especially for like entrepreneurs or communities that have been shut out of the traditional financial system.
Yeah, it's about giving everyone a seat at the table no matter what.
100%. And this brings us back to the heart of why we wanted to focus on these 5 women for this episode, because their stories really illustrate how technology, especially blockchain, it's not just about like the code or the algorithms, it's about people.
It's about using this powerful tool to solve real-world problems and make the world a better, more inclusive place for everyone, which brings us to our final trailblazer, Thy-Diep. Most people just call her Yip.
I know, right? And her career path is like the definition of non-traditional, McKinsey consultant, executive coach, and then she jumps into Web3 head first.
And now she's like this huge advocate for getting more women involved in the Web3 space, which, let's be honest, can feel a little bit like a boys' club sometimes.
Oh, for sure. But she's not just talking about it. She's creating real opportunities. I mean, take DLT Talents and HERDAO, for example. These are initiatives that she started that are specifically designed to give women the skills and the knowledge and the networks that they need to really make it in the blockchain space.
It's about, like, breaking down those barriers to entry, right? Making sure that there are more women at the table.
Absolutely. And it's not about filling a quota or anything like that. It's about recognizing that having more perspectives, more diversity always leads to better solutions, more creative ideas, and ultimately makes the entire industry stronger.
I totally agree. And before we jump into Yip's work with sustainability, which I'm really interested to hear more about, why don't we take a quick break and hear from our listeners? What are your thoughts so far? What's resonating with you about these incredible women and their work in the world of blockchain? We'll be back in a flash. So we've talked about financial inclusion, supply chain transparency, but Yipta, she's also tackling this really important issue, sustainability. And to be honest, it's not something that people always connect with blockchain.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about how much energy some of these blockchain networks use, which is a valid concern. But what's exciting is that there's this growing movement within the blockchain space to address that. And Yip is one of the people leading the way. She's got this initiative called Sista and Third, and it's all about making blockchain work for the environment.
Okay, so how does that work? How do you make blockchain more sustainable?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach, right? I mean, one aspect is promoting and developing these more energy-efficient blockchain technologies, but it's also about finding these really innovative ways to use blockchain to solve environmental problems.
Like what? Give me an example.
Sure, take carbon emissions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a huge issue. So blockchain can be used to create these like really transparent systems for tracking a company's carbon footprint. And because it's blockchain, it's tamper-proof, which means companies can't fudge the numbers.
Right. It's like a digital ledger for the environment. It makes greenwashing a lot harder.
Exactly. And it's not just about tracking, right? Blockchain can be used to incentivize sustainable practices. So, like, imagine a system where companies get rewarded for using renewable energy or for reducing waste.
Wow.
Yeah. It could even be used to help local communities manage their natural resources in a more sustainable way.
That's amazing. I feel like we're just starting to understand what blockchain can do when it comes to things like sustainability.
Oh, absolutely. We're just scratching the surface. And people like Yip are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible, which is exciting to see. But if we take a step back for a second and look at the bigger picture here, what's so remarkable about these 5 women is that they're all committed to using blockchain for good.
Yes.
They're not just interested in the technology for technology's sake. They want to use it to make a positive impact on the world.
Which is a theme that's come up again and again in this deep dive. These women aren't just shaping the future of blockchain. They're trying to build a better future for everyone. A more equitable, more sustainable, more inclusive future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, first and foremost, women are killing it in the blockchain space. They're making these incredible contributions, whether it's research, development, advocacy, you name it, they're there.
And they're not just participating, they're leading the way. And they're using this technology to solve real-world problems.
Exactly. And this is only the beginning. Blockchain technology is going to continue to evolve, and the voices of these women are going to be more important than ever in making sure that it benefits everyone.
So to all our listeners out there, whether you're like a total tech whiz or you're just starting to learn about blockchain, remember, be curious, stay engaged, and most importantly, be a part of this conversation. Because the future of blockchain, it's not set in stone. It's being written right now, and everybody has a role to play in shaping what that future looks like.
Couldn't agree more.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the topics that matter.